So the Ascended Master Kuthumi, who also knows how to roar like a lion, gave a very interesting teaching on ignorance in his Corona class lessons. He said that ignorance is a habit. What's more, he said, ignorance is the first habit to conquer. This is a significant statement because it shows us that if ignorance is a habit, then ignorance is not passive. It is something we actively do to ourselves and that we daily reinforce. It's a bad habit. I think it's a habit of the laziness of the mind. But what about the weakness of the mind? What about the yin mind? Sometimes people just don't have the mental strength to study. And that is why we are so grateful to have the macrobiotic diet, so that we can balance our body, balance the brain, balance the organs, and literally have the physical strength to study. And I think that is part of the element of ignorance. It is not just laziness. It is the fact that people do not have the strength in their bodies and their minds to sustain their attention, either in meditation on God or in study of the spiritual teachings. Kuthumi's statement also tells us that, like any bad habit, only we can break the habit of ignorance. This goes back to the teaching that ignorance of the law is no excuse. One way or the other, we are accountable for our ignorance. We are accountable for the condition of our body. Once we are enlightened, we can no longer fall back on the excuse of ignorance. Now we know how to heal our bodies, and we know that our bodies are based exactly upon what we eat, plus the spiritual light of our chakras. I have calls from people every day calling me around the clock, emergency medical situations. And those situations, I know, could have been avoided had 5 or 6 or 7 years ago, when I started on this diet and presented it, had they gone on it for themselves. The body is what we make of that body. Kuthumi also tells us that the way to break our unwanted habits is through the substitution of Christ-like opposites. We need to replace the habit of ignorance with good habits. Now I'm going to give you a list of the 9 habits that you simply have to cultivate in order to break the habit of ignorance. You can also call them 9 antidotes to the poison of ignorance. Please write them down. I want you first of all to remember the definition of ignorance. Ignorance is blindness to the true nature of your real self, and blindness to the true nature of your unreal self. That is the starting point. The handwriting on the temple wall was, "Man, know thyself, and man, know thyself as God." The unreal self and the real self. Habit number 1. In order to break the habit of ignorance, put first things first. Habit number 2. In order to break the habit of ignorance, constantly remember God. Keep in mind the true nature of yourself as one with God. Habit number 3. In order to break the habit of ignorance, free yourself from the sense of I and mine. Habit number 4. In order to break the habit of ignorance, meditate on God's laws. Study the world's scriptures. Habit number 5. In order to break the habit of ignorance, train your mind in right mindfulness. Habit number 6. In order to break the habit of ignorance, engage in self-examination. Root out your flaws. Habit number 7. In order to break the habit of ignorance, see things as they really are. Habit number 8. In order to break the habit of ignorance, invoke the violet flame to consume unconscious anger as the source of all ignorance. Habit number 9. In order to break the habit of ignorance, call upon a spiritual teacher for assistance. Now I'm going to break these habits down and give you a teaching on each one, which is why I didn't repeat them as I gave you the list. Habit number 1. In order to break the habit of ignorance, put first things first. Put first things first is number 1 on my list of antidotes to ignorance, because it can help you get control of your time and your life. It is one way to fight the bad habits of laziness, sloth, or procrastination that make you ignore your goals in life. Ask yourself, do I devote the best part of my day or week to the most important things in my life? Time management systems all ask you the same question. They remind you that you cannot save time. Once a minute or an hour is gone, it is gone. Since you cannot save your minutes and hours, all you can do is plan to use them properly. The time management courses tell you to start by writing down your long-term goals in life and your short-term daily goals. Then prioritize your list. Then ask yourself, am I devoting the proper amount of time to my highest priorities? It sounds so simple and obvious, but how many of us actually do this? Or do we let our day get eaten up by interruptions or distractions that take us from our most important pursuits? If the most important thing in your life is your spiritual progress, then you will assign an important part of your day to that progress. Once you have taken care of earning a living and caring for your family, you will take time to commune with God and to study. You may not always be able to spend a lot of time on these things, but even if it's 5 or 10 minutes, it should be quality time. Think about it. Do you spend more time improving your wardrobe or your home or your body than you spend improving the spiritual quality of your life? Do you spend more time worrying about the future than you spend cultivating the divine spark within? Do you keep company with the TV set more than you keep company with God? As one keen observer said, what bothers me about TV is that it tends to take our minds off our minds. And TV takes our minds off of God too, and off of our list of priorities in life. You will experience a wonderful alchemy when you write down your goals and keep them in front of you to remind you to put first things first. But if you don't organize your time, you will become frustrated and out of touch with your life's purpose. Why don't you try it for a week, this week, and then keep going? Get a loose leaf notebook and label it, My Goals and My Goal Fittedness. Get dividers and make the first section the statement of your goals. Be sure to prioritize your goals, putting the most important first. And remember, these are not just short-term goals, but long-term goals as well.
You're watching Elizabeth Clare Prophet, world-renowned author and founder of Summit University. Summit University is located at the beautiful Royal Teton Ranch in Park County, Montana, just north of Yellowstone National Park. If you'd like more information, call 1-800-245-5445. That's 1-800-245-5445.
Put only one goal per page so you can add or subtract information, such as your timelines, necessary preparation and research, necessary funds. Make a budget and a self-assessment as to whether you and others you are working with have the necessary goal fitting to accomplish the goal. Be realistic. By goal fitting, I mean, do you have the education, the training, experience, aptitude, and qualities of character necessary to finish what you start? The second section of your notebook should be your plans for goal fittedness. In it, you answer the question, What will make me fit to achieve my goals, and how will I be fitted? It includes what I already mentioned, education, training, etc., and the specifics that you yourself must determine. You should not hesitate to seek expert advice from multiple sources. That's very important. Talk to people who have been successful at what you are attempting to do. Don't just assume that you can divine it out of the air. There are all kinds of smart, expert people in this country and around the world, and they're only too happy to talk to people who are interested in finding out how to do what they know how to do. Your third section should be your record of how you spend your time. Monitor yourself for a week and see where your time flies. Time is a fast-moving current. When it is gone, and it will never return again. After carefully monitoring your time for a week, see where you need to make adjustments to put first things first. Examine what distractions keep you from your most important tasks. See if you can carve out time for your real needs by cutting down on idle chatter, unnecessary interruptions that do not contribute to your spiritual or material progress. Let's make a New Year's resolution in El Moria's name to put first things first and overcome the habit of ignorance, starting with the habit of ignoring the passing of molecules of time that will never be available again. I think the same people that waste time, waste water, waste electricity, waste food, waste money. They haven't begun to appreciate how great a price God and the whole hierarchy of heaven has paid to create this matter universe. Every essence of it is valuable and should never be wasted. So frugality is part of establishing the frugality of time. Time is valuable because you are valuable. What you do is valuable, and if it isn't, then you better think about doing something that is valuable. If you are valuable to God, then every moment of your time is valuable. I consider my time very valuable, and one of my burdens is when people do not value time and when they waste my time. So you should not let other people waste your time, and you shouldn't waste it yourself. There's no such thing as recycled time. We can recycle paper, garbage, bottles, tin cans, etc. But time is only available in the moment and in the collection of moments that make up the intervals of your life. Time is all we've got. Time is cups to fill or leave empty. Either way they move on the conveyor belt of the universe, never to pass by again. Habit number 2. In order to break the habit of ignorance, constantly remember God. While you are remembering God, God is remembering you. Keep in mind the true nature of yourself as one with God. In Deuteronomy, the Lord tells the people how to constantly remember him. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one Lord, and thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thine heart, with all thy soul, with all thy might. And these words which I command thee this day shall be in thine heart. The only acceptable loving of God is when we love him with all of our heart. All of our other loves are a part of our love for God. God does not exclude them. We should not exclude him. Only all of our soul and all of our might is the worthy love that we can give to God. And thou shalt teach them diligently unto thy children, shalt talk of them when thou sittest in thine house, and when thou walkest by the way, and when thou liest down, and when thou risest up. And thou shalt bind them for a sign upon thine hand, and they shall be as frontlets between thine eyes. And thou shalt write them upon the posts of thy house and on thy gates. The Jewish custom of wearing phylacteries is based on this scripture. Phylacteries are small leather cases containing the verses of Deuteronomy I just read to you, and other verses of scripture. These cases are bound to the forehead and left arm with leather straps, They were worn as reminders of God and of man's duty to keep God's laws. Some Jews still practice this custom today. Binding these to the forehead is placing them upon the third eye, that we might qualify our seeing through this lens of the written laws of God. I think it's nice to have sayings, nicely lettered in our homes, of things we want to remember of God's teaching. Brother Lawrence, a 17th century lay Carmelite, so mastered the art of constantly remembering God that Abbé Joseph de Beaufort wrote a book about his practice of the presence of God. In a letter Brother Lawrence once wrote, he said, "I concentrate on being always in his holy presence. I keep myself in his presence by simple attentiveness and a loving gaze upon God, which I can call the actual presence of God, or to put it more clearly, an habitual, silent, and secret conversation of the soul with God." He said that the enemy that keeps us from constant conversation with God is useless thoughts. Useless thoughts. Do you know where I think useless thoughts come from? I think that they come from an acidic condition of the body. When your body, and hence your brain, is in an acidic state, all kinds of useless thoughts pass through it that are of non-consequence, that may be negative, that may be depressing, just all kinds of debris that doesn't belong there. How do we get an acidic condition in the body? By not chewing our food well and by eating too much meat that causes us to be acidic. So again, diet affects the brain and how we think. Diet affects the colon reverberates back to the brain, and you can go through this on a cyclic basis day after day after day, having parts of your day when your brain is just non-functioning. And if you want to stop it and you're sick and tired of it, you have to change your diet. There's just no question about it. It begins with physical chemistry and physical molecules. So, Brother Lawrence's advice on how to beat this enemy was, practice makes perfect. As soon as we perceive invading thoughts that have nothing to do with our task at hand or our salvation, he said we ought to reject them and return to our communion with God. Just say no. No, you thought, you will not enter here. I'm not interested in entertaining you as a guest in my house today. Say no to these thoughts. Some people are in such a yin condition that they think that everything that comes into their mind must be cosmic. And they'll go around saying so, that was cosmic, you know. And they're absolutely floating in no man's land on the astral plane. So you've got to decide who's going to inhabit your house. You keep your living rooms tidy, you keep your house neat and clean, you make sure there's no mice in there, you keep everything out you don't want, but you let your body temple be just invaded from every side. And you just have to stop it. This place is the habitation of God. God's thoughts are allowed here, and other thoughts are not, period. Just do it. Stop all the bad thoughts. As soon as we perceive invading thoughts that have nothing to do with our task at hand or our salvation, he said we ought to reject them and return to our communion with God. That shows that Brother Lawrence had a young mind. He had a mind like a steel trap. He simply did not let these thoughts in. This does take practice, but it can be done. But you'll never do it if you don't stop eating all that yin food. I always remember the words of Saint Teresa of Lisieux. Do you know what she said? I'd like you all to be able to say this. She says, "I do not believe I have ever been more than 3 minutes at a time without thinking of God." The 19th century Hindu saint Ramakrishna called the habit of remembering God developing a spiritual mood. Do you know what a spiritual mood is? Ramakrishna asked. Establishing a relationship with God and keeping it bright before our eyes at all times, at the time of eating, drinking, sitting, sleeping, etc., is what is called a spiritual mood. For example, affirming, I am his servant, I am his child, I am a part of him. This is what is called the ripe I, spelled with a single letter I. The ripe I, the I of knowledge. But affirming, I am the son of so-and-so, I am the father of so-and-so, these are the I's of spiritual ignorance. These should be given up, should be renounced. They bring about bondage by strengthening egoism and pride. Constant remembering is necessary. A part of the mind should always be kept turned towards God. It is then only that success comes. He must be made one's own by holding fast to one particular loving relationship. It is in that way alone that loving pressure can be exerted on him. Ramakrishna's advice to help us constantly remember God is to always keep a part of our mind turned towards God and to hold fast to one particular loving relationship. Several ascended masters have encouraged us to pick one ascended master whom we regard as our personal teacher and to whom we give utmost devotion. Lord Maitreya once said, pick your guru, any ascended master, and stick to that one like glue. The Mahachohan has spoken of forming a particular loving relationship with an ascended master in terms of devoting yourself to one of the 7 Chohans, or lords of the rays. Each of the 7 Chohans tutor the souls of devotees on one aspect or one ray of the path of individual Christhood. The Mahachohan said, if you truly love the lords of the 7 rays, their message and their vision for the age, realize that the most important feat you can perform for each Chohan is, so to speak, to become that Chohan in embodiment. Start with one or the other and embody his virtue, his drive, his vision, his wisdom, and begin to walk about knowing that you are in training for some holy office, here or hereafter, after your ascension. I encourage you to have a more definite conception of your divinity and your walk, and of where you are going. Some Christians say, as they make their decisions in life, what would Jesus do? You may say, what would Saint Germain do? What would El Morya do? And study the whole body of that one's teaching, so that all the world might also expand that particular flame of that wondrous master. Become that one and affirm, for example, I am the living embodiment of Hilarion, where I am. Hilarion, come now and equip me and fit me for cosmic service with your legions. That's the end of the quote by the Mahachohan. This is good advice and correct advice. But I need to remind you to remember first things first. El Morya, Chohan of the first ray, guru of the messengers and of Chelas who have qualified themselves. He puts the new student on the path through boot camp and prepares him for acceptance by any of the other Chohans. It is through El Morya that the dispensation for our church is renewed each year. It is he who has drawn liberally from his own causal body to sponsor us and our worldwide community. It is unthinkable, then, that we should bypass him for another. He teaches us to bend the knee before the will of God and to balance the karma of past misuses of the first ray, the blue ray of power, and of the throat chakra. To get a passing grade at his Darjeeling retreat means we stand a good chance of being accepted as candidates under the other 6 Chohans. If you can't hack it with Morya, don't fool yourself into thinking that another Chohan will take you on. The other 6 expect that you will have passed the first grade, so they will not have to put you back a grade to learn what you didn't learn under El Morya. Put first things first. Ask to be initiated by Morya every day and see how you advance in the cosmic peerage. The 16th century Saint Teresa of Avila gives several keys to achieve constant remembrance of God. She said that once she felt Christ at her right side. She says this sense that Christ was beside her was a great help toward walking with a habitual remembrance of God. For one thing, it helped her avoid displeasing him, because it seemed to her that he was looking always at her. And secondly, each time she wanted to speak with Jesus, she felt he was so near that he couldn't fail to hear her. Another of Teresa's techniques was to visualize the figure of Christ within her. If you find it hard to fix your attention upon God, try these techniques. Or maybe you can learn something from this parable that Ramakrishna used to tell. A disciple once came to a teacher to learn to meditate on God. The teacher gave him instructions, but the disciple soon returned and said that he could not carry them out. Every time he tried to meditate, he found himself thinking about his pet buffalo. Well then, said the teacher, you meditate on that buffalo you're so fond of. The disciple shut himself up in a room and began to concentrate on the buffalo. After some days, the teacher knocked at his door and the disciple answered, Sir, I am sorry, I can't come out to greet you. This door is too small. My horns will be in the way. Then the teacher smiled and said, Splendid! You have become identified with the object of your concentration. Now fix that concentration upon God, and you will easily succeed. I have come to experience over the years something that I would like to share with you. I have realized that there is a certain compartment of the mind, if you will, where God resides. As I go about my duties of administering the affairs of our church, counseling or taking dictations or comforting and exhorting staff and students, I observe that I am always one with God in this compartment of the mind. I'm thinking of God, loving God, talking to him or El Moria, or Linello, or Archangel Michael, Mother Mary, or Kuthumi, and other companions of light. This is a track, as it were, that is in the back of my mind. This is where I ask questions. This is where I receive answers. Right in the middle of counseling sessions, or at dinner, or walking around the tree farm, or when I go to sleep, or during sleep, or when I awaken. This ongoing conversation with God and my friends of light takes place simultaneously as I do everything else. Sometimes my interchanges with the ascended ones are discussions of weighty matters that burden my heart. But one by one, resolution comes through communication. I always keep these doors of communication open between octaves, because I can make no decision of myself, but only through the great God source. I have come to realize that this open door is an open door for others, and not for myself alone. I have found that when people unburden their hearts to me, I notice and they notice that often within 24 hours the problem is resolved, or in the very least, situations take a turn for the better. I think this is because I maintain this open channel of this compartment of the mind, and what I hear and take in goes directly to God because of that keeping open of that communion and that communication. Sometimes I say to people who've been burdened for many months about a problem, why didn't you tell me about it sooner? And they have said to me, I didn't want to burden you. I want to tell you that you don't have to worry about burdening me, because as soon as I receive a call for help, I do make the call to God, and I use Archangel Michael's sword, and I turn the matter over to God for adjudication through the sacred fire. You can do the same, having that attitude and that presence of Mother Mary, of listening grace. I think that people who are around me notice that when a conversation ceases to have any substance to it, I cease listening, and I'm going back to this compartment of the mind. And so, for people to keep me on track of what they're saying, they need to be concise, make sense, use language properly, and get to the heart of the matter, and get it stated well. So the second part of habit number 2 is keep in mind the true nature of yourself as one with God. So the constant remembering of God is something you can work on and you can achieve. The true nature of yourself as one with God. You need to remind yourself of your God reality, that is, your reality in God and God's reality in you. Let's stop and do that right now by singing the song, God's Real in Me. It's number 797, and it's also in back of the angel booklet.
I have a keynote, a great divine plan that sings in my heart and says who I am. It swells in a chorus that echoes from far, saying I love who you are. With the masters beside me to show me the way, my I am presence to light every day.
Thank you. Please be seated. In an address Vivekananda once gave on the real nature of man, he explained how important it was to constantly keep in mind the true nature of your real self. The Atman, the God self, he said, is first to be heard of, then thought about, and then meditated upon. Fill the brain, therefore, with high thoughts, with the highest ideals. Place them day and night before you, and out of that will come great work. Talk not about impurity, but say that we are pure. The true devotees of God have been affirming their real self for centuries. I love these lines from the Ashtavakra Gita that affirm the God within. Wonderful am I, my salutations to myself. I am beyond the range of decay. When the whole world from Brahma to a blade of grass is destroyed, I still remain. Wonderful am I, in spite of the body and its properties, I am one. All praises be to me, I am most skillful. I am wonderful, adoration to myself. The reference to I, me, I am, myself, is this devotee's conscious awareness that that self is entirely God. This is such a wondrous liberation. You know, it's hard to be a human being, and it's easy to be God. The Christian mystic who realizes his oneness with God practices the same science of positive affirmation. Anna of Munsingen tells a story of an elderly nun named Sister Else of Neustadt, who, although sick and bedridden, would repeat these words over and over. God is within me, and I am within him. God is within me, and I am within him. God is within me, and I am within him. He is mine, and I am his. He is mine, and I am his. He is mine, and I am his. He is for me, and I am for him. He is for me, and I am for him. My soul is beautiful and proud and confident, for God has lavished his mercy upon me, and I am beloved by him. Why don't you create your own affirmations of your oneness with God and give them as a hymn to God and to your divine self? These very personal affirmations will have special meaning for you because you composed them. You can dedicate the 4th section of your notebook on my goals and my goal-fittedness to your affirmations. The cosmic being Helios has given us a simple method for reinforcing in our heart and mind the memory of our divine calling. He said we should place notes to ourselves in conspicuous places that affirm our divine origin and our mission in life. When you remember your purpose, he said, all decisions come into alignment on a daily basis. I have produced our wallet-size focuses of the Ascended Masters to help you constantly remember God and your God reality. When you need a boost, just pull out these cards and give the calls and affirmations on the back of them. We've come up with some new cards for this Christmas conference, but each of the cards has a mantra from the Master on the back of the card. I originally thought of them as something you would carry in your wallet, but at this point you'll have to make a choice of which ones you will carry. So you can pull them out when you're in a traffic jam or any other kind of a jam and just say the mantras on the back. This time we have out the chakras, the healing thought form, and a number of others that you don't have. So these are just like phylacteries. If you don't have time to say all these decrees, you just put them over your third eye. And you make a fiat to God that all of these decrees that you've said many times over will be driven right into a difficult situation. So thank you very much for your kind attention.
For more information, call toll-free 1-800-245-5445. The preceding program was presented by Summit University, Box 5000, Livingston, Montana, 59047 5000. If you'd like to know more, call this number or write this address. For a free book by Elizabeth Clare Prophet, or for more information about her teachings on the world's major religions, call 1-800-245-5445. That's 1-800-245-5445.